Welcome guys to another lesson. We're starting in a bit. Just warming up. Alright, how to play the major 7th chord. Alright, for this lesson, the assumption is obviously that you understand your interval theory and your scalar theory. So what that means is you can build your major scales from any key. Okay, and your basic intervallic theory would be you being able to identify just different intervals within that scale, right? So knowing that this, in the key of C major, would be the root, D would be the second, or the 9, E would be the 3rd, F the 4th, G the 5th, A the 6th, B the 7th, and C the root again, or the octave. Okay, so for this lesson we're not going to go through that kind of basic theory. So that's why this lesson is assuming that you've already learned all of your major scales in 12 keys and you understand all your intervals. Okay, because what you're going to need here is to be able to identify what a root is, what a 3rd is, what a 5th is, and what a 7th is, because you're going to learn how to play a major 7th chord in different contexts and alterations. Okay, so now we're going to learn, I'm going to demonstrate the major 7th chord in the key of C major. So we're going to go through the scale of C major. So your responsibility obviously here is to do this in 3 other keys. Maybe your desire is not to play 12 keys right away, but I would advise that you do it in more than one. Okay, but for this demonstration we're going to stay in the key of C and then leave all the work to you. Okay, because that's where the growing starts. All right, now the major scale of C is C major. Starts on the C, goes to the D, the E, the F, G, A, B, and finally C. And it's the same with the left hand, right? And the same way when you descend. So obviously the assumption here is that you know all of this, and it is covered in the outcomes videos of April. Have a look at that, and some of the theory material that is in our Google Drive. Send us an email and we'll add you for access. Okay. All right, so that was the C major scale, right? And how we build, first of all, the triad is to take the 1st degree, or the root, the 3rd, and the 5th, and sound them together. Then you'd get a major triad, right? Because it uses 3 notes. Now, to play a 7th chord, you simply just play the 7th interval with all the other notes together to get a C major 7th chord. Okay, and then there's 2 ways to look at this. We prefer one of them. Okay, so you can look at this as playing an E minor triad with a C on the bass, right? Or playing a C major triad with a B note on the right hand, or the melody. Okay, so I think it's better and more helpful to see it as an E minor triad over a C note. Okay, so it's E minor triad over C to get a C major 7th chord, or a C major triad with a B note. That's not helpful for me, okay? Or as far as where we want to take this is concerned, okay? It's very limited. So, but learning it as E minor instead with C on the bass is more helpful, and I'll tell you why. So that's what you're going to do with pretty much all your major 7th chords, basically. Okay, you're going to go to the key of your choice. Maybe I'm in the key of A flat. I'm going to go to the root and then go to the 3rd degree, the minor chord, and play it over the root to create a 7th chord. All right, I said do this in 3 keys, so maybe let's do it in B flat. Okay, I'm gonna take the 3rd degree, take its minor triad, and obviously you know that the 3rd degree takes minor as far as the major chord scale is concerned, because if you're in the key of B flat, the 1st degree takes major, 2nd degree takes minor, 3rd degree takes a minor chord, 4th degree takes a major chord, 5th degree takes a major chord or a dominant chord if you are voicing in 7ths, and then the 6th degree gets a minor chord, then finally a diminished chord, diminished triad on the 7th degree, back to the root. Okay, so I'm going to go to the 3rd, take the minor chord, play it with the root to design a major 7th sound. Okay, that's the truth for C major 7 as well. It's just the E minor chord of the 3rd note of the scale over the bass, over the root. That's it, okay? And that's true for all of your keys that you are going to go through, okay? All right, so that's how you practice the major 7th chord. You're going to take the 3rd note, take its chord, which is minor, and then play it over the bass to get the 1st chord of the scale in its 7th form. Okay. Now, interesting ways to play this as well is to kind of focus or hone in the E minor triad, since it's the chord that's giving the chord, the C major 7th chord or the 7th chord, its very identity. We want to look at this chord, E minor, right, and how we can make it interesting in order to make our entire voicing of C major 7th interesting. So the first thing you can do is arpeggiate it. Just focusing on the E minor, okay? You can arpeggiate it, you can invert it. So this is the root position, 1st inversion, 2nd inversion, root position. See that? That's how you can treat the C major 7th, or the 7th sound, the major 7th sound, focusing on the triad, the minor triad inside the chord that makes up the chord. Okay, and then another thing you can do is practice, since C major 7 is made up of E minor with C on the bass, that means we can play E Phrygian. Okay, we can play trying to play some melodies, some E Phrygian ideas. Remember, E Phrygian is just a C major scale starting on the 3rd degree. So you could play C Ionian over C major 7. It's just not that convincing, right? It's better started on the 3rd. And the important notes kind of fall on the downbeats when you start on the third. Can play the E triad only using octaves, so you can highlight the chord tones of the E minor triad over C to further amplify the major seventh sound. Okay, I hope that helped. So for homework, I would suggest you learn all your minor triads, right? But learn how to make E minor interesting over C in order to play a C major seventh chord sound by applying E minor arpeggios over C, the E minor mode or E minor Phrygian mode, which is just a scale of C major starting from the third degree. And yeah, you can do that for that. You can just arpeggiate it, create melodies that are still within the E minor triad, okay? And then move it up in octaves while ignoring the root, okay? You hear how almost out of context it feels when you put it in. I actually don't like the root much because it's already in my left hand. I don't see why sometimes I should add it in my melodic lines. Sometimes I do just use the root to pivot to other notes, which are more important, and that's what improv is about. What's your hierarchy as far as concepts are concerned? You know, what do you deem more grounding in harmony in order to get your messages across in improvisation? All right, that's the major seventh chord. All right, there's a video coming up about the minor seventh chord, and so far we've used the E Phrygian mode to improvise over our C major or major seventh chord. So this E Phrygian can be played on any other key as well. If we're in the key of C sharp, we know that the third degree is F, so the minor triad over the root gives us the C sharp major 7 chord, right? And what we're going to play, the scale we're going to play on top of that is the F Phrygian. Sorry. Keep on making a mistake. All right, I almost say I was lost in the woods there. I had to play something more convincing. Okay, but you're gonna do that, okay? You're gonna go to every key in the key of E flat. You're gonna go to the third, play its minor third over the root, and then start playing inversions of it, playing the Phrygian scale that is associated with the triad you chose in that particular key, okay, and arpeggiating. You can play the minor 7th arpeggio of that triad as well. It works. That's a little bit more intermediate and advanced. But just quickly for the advanced guys, when you play a minor 7th instead of a minor triad, you get tension 9 available, which is introduced by the new 7th note. Okay? Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.